Welcome to the MMHP in the 989. Channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history from the city by the bay. And now, here's your host, Scott Baker.
Thank you. My name is George Plimpton. I'm not a member of the New Reformation Dixieland band, nor am I going to play with it, but it gives me enormous pleasure to be able to introduce Dave Opperman and New Reformation Dixieland band.
Well, we're back here at Studio 163 here in Essexville, Michigan. How you guys doing tonight? Everybody
good? Good.
Studio full of people again. Wonderful. Dr. J's in the house. How you doing, Dr. J?
Very well. Very well.
Anything new?
I'm on the prowl for Working Class Dog, the album by Rick Springfield that had Jesse's Girl on it.
Yeah.
Rick so generously gave us a beautiful guitar to display at the museum, and so we're looking for a few other artifacts to put up with the guitar. So that's on my want list.
Have it.
There was a run. Oh, Fred, I was thinking about you, but I thought, I know you're a blues man. And
I also buy records to sell. That's my main business.
All right. Well, how about checking into that? Because I know you'd want to donate that to the museum.
Definitely.
For crying out loud, yes.
I think Fred plays that one a lot at home.
Oh, yeah, right. I don't think so.
He's a closet Rick Springfield fan. We just didn't know it.
He'll be like, I made 25 cents on that one when I sold it last week. How you doing, Sir Fred?
I'm doing real good.
Good. What's new?
Well, just working on my book.
Good.
Doing that.
Good.
Buying and selling records. And
doing the usual, huh?
Just the usual.
Good. Mike Beatty, our archivist, is in the house. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing.
Mike's hiding outside the window doing our videotaping like he did for our last episode. We got a full house and a very, very special guest for you guys tonight. We're so excited because this has been a long time coming. We heard through the grapevine that we weren't sure if we were going to be able to track him down, but the legendary Mr. Dave Opperman is in the house today. How you doing, Dave?
That's absolutely swell, I would say, and that's with 2 P's and 2 N's.
Thank you, sir. So good to see you. Thank you for making the trek.
Yeah, well, I couldn't have found it except that my seeing eye dog over here, Mr. Bob, Bob Barkalow.
That's the next guy here in the room.
Yep.
Michigan, mid-Michigan synonymous musician maestro here. He goes all around for all these years. He's kind of touched base with everybody. The strumming machine behind all your favorite Rick Springfield covers. How you doing, Bob Barkalow?
I have the album in the collection.
I bet you do. Bob's been a special guest. What do you call yourself? The executive producer.
I'm working
for the New Reformation band?
10 years now, and we decided that we needed a sound guy, so we took ourselves and stole some of Dave's equipment out of his garage, some antique Altec Lansing stuff, and Al Limberg, our good buddy, paid for a nice sound system, a Mackie, and a couple of peel the paint right off the wall Yamaha speakers. So we are ready to rock.
Dave's back, doing it up. Dave, how have you been, man? Like, what's been going on for the last 4 or 5 years? Catch us up to where you've been, what you've been through.
Can Bob help?
Absolutely.
Yeah, his brain is sharper than mine.
Absolutely.
See, because we just had a very important meeting in Saginaw there at the new home of the Saginaw Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Their brand new offices. The whole wall picture of the arena, just very spectacular, don't you think?
Right there in the conference room with a view of State Street. 6300 State Street, roughly, the new office, and it's beautiful.
And you're going to be kicking off the season with the Spirit there, I hear?
Yes. They've hired us to put a little extra excitement into the first game of the season. And so, and we did get excited there for a minute, didn't we, Bob?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially when they offered us all that money, and now we have access to the media room where they have free food.
And is this going to be in the Red Room, separate from
Yes.
the game? Yeah.
How did you know about the Red Room?
Well, I've played the Red Room for the Spirit game myself, so yeah, that's kind of part of partial with the local entertainment.
Left your fingerprints in there somewhere?
Somewhere, or stink, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Yeah. So are you playing all the shows still with the new Reformation band, Dave?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, you're not retired then.
I don't let the side guys vote. I mean, I like side men because I couldn't do anything without them, but if I really gave them voting power, I don't know how long I'd be in front.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you're still doing this, and it's wonderful to have you here and giving this history behind this wonderful band for us. I want you to take us back to day one, where you started musically, where you came from, and how it all came together.
You're talking about way back then.
Way back. Can you scratch that itch and get that cobweb knocked down?
Talking about crawling up on the piano bench there when I was maybe 6 years old.
Really?
I didn't know about Dixieland at the time, and I didn't know about Bob Barlow, so I had a lot to learn.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
We're still learning about Bob, but I understand.
Yeah, right.
Well, in my research, there were a couple Oppermans that were musicians, local Saginaw.
Well, I think my Uncle Kurt was...
That's the one.
Yes, right. So good for you. I'm sure Uncle Kurt appreciated whatever you said about him. That's nice.
Fred's feeling...
Looking down over Fred's shoulder as he's writing the book.
So you said when you were 6, you crawled up on the piano. That got the music bug going?
Well, and the good thing was that both my father and my mother were musically talented.
Is this in Saginaw, where you were living?
In Saginaw,
yeah.
Lived on Mackinac Street, about a block from Arthur Hill High School.
Okay.
That sort of sets the scene there.
Yeah, and what was Mom and Dad doing?
Well, basically, they're trying to keep me from scratching the new piano. So just take those fingernails off there.
Uh-huh. What did they do musically?
Well, they both played the piano when I let them. I was pretty possessive of that piano. But... yeah, they both were. My father was 6'5", so he didn't have a problem climbing up on the piano stool.
Not a problem.
Like I did. Yeah, right.
Not at the age of 6.
Right.
Did you take lessons, Dave?
Yes, I did. I did take lessons, and from 2 different piano teachers, and one was classical and one was jazz. And eventually I realized I didn't need that other guy there. No, because I do like classical, and I can play a couple of notes, but not much. But I realized my love was jazz, so that's kept one, got rid of the other,
Okay.
So.
Wow. So what age did you take up the lessons? Was that at 6 or 7? Or?
Yeah, 6 or 7.
Right off the bat then?
Yeah, right.
What did you immediately in your teenage years get out playing, or how did you find your way to the stage?
Well, I had a little bit of that show business bug, and I think I did like even some grown-ups do, and pretend I had a radio station, and I broadcast from my piano stool, but nobody was there listening, so I finally gave up on that one. Yeah.
Was it Dixieland jazz right from the beginning for you, or?
Well, I realized pretty quick that if you're going to have a Dixieland band, it's hard to do it with just one person. Yeah, it doesn't work, and I hope that before this broadcast is over, we're going to show an example of the fact that there is more than one person when you play that Dixieland.
Right. Well, we can get some music on for sure. Yeah,
I'd like that.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm glad you agreed to that. We'll have to work that in there. I thought you might come and perform for us tonight, but that's maybe not.
I don't see the keyboard anywhere.
We've had him in here.
Oh boy,
we've had him in here.
Was your brother Nick playing then? playing guitar or banjo?
No, because he was enough younger. He probably wasn't doing anything right then because he was a younger brother by about 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So took him a little while to follow up.
Right.
But then he realized that with Mom and Dad and I being piano players, we're not going to sound very good as an orchestra. So he started picking up the guitar and most of his recordings. But he was also the featured vocalist in the New Reformation Band for as many years. He passed away, I guess, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So what was your influences when you were 6 into your teenage years? Who did you listen to and you're like, I want to be like them?
Well, unfortunately, I got pushed over in the corner and I ended up thinking I wanted to be Spike Jones.
Spike Jones.
Yeah.
Okay.
And nobody's ever said that he was a great jazz player, I don't think.
He had a good band, though.
Yeah.
And he incorporated humor into the
Yeah.
proceedings, right?
And way back in the day, Spike Jones was one of the groups that continually appeared at the Saginaw Auditorium. He was one of the traveling folks that came to town and put on concerts there.
Did you see him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I did. But that could confuse you a little bit there because, they were banging on pots and pans and doing a lot of stuff that didn't seem real legitimate,
Right.
Now, where'd you find those things? I don't know.
So you Spike Jones coming into the teenage years, that was what was infiltrating your ears then?
Yeah, well, then and then I started to notice that the girls.
I moved to Ann Arbor in 1991, and during the fireworks in Detroit, I turned on the local NBC affiliate station. I think it was NBC.
Yeah.
And you were on it.
Yeah.
You were doing the fireworks that year.
That's absolutely correct. That's right. I loved the 4th of July because that's one of those times where you can make a lot of noise and people don't say, "Oh, shut up." No, they want you to make a lot of noise. So it works out pretty good. And that's how eventually I met George Plimpton. And I know that somebody that knows about authors, you would recognize that name, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he lived in New York City, and I knew George well enough that when I got to go to New York, he always had me stay at his house, and I thought that was very good. And on the CD that I happened to bring along tonight, that's the one in where he introduces me right on the beginning of the recording. So
maybe we'll have to play that track then.
Yeah.
Now, was that around the time that George Plimpton wrote Paper Lion? Or was this after?
After, because that was probably one of his biggest claims to fame when that book became successful.
All right. And then a movie made of it, the whole shooting match.
Yeah.
So how did you get to know? What was the circumstance that you met Plimpton?
I think, I'm trying to think how that all worked out, but he came to Central Michigan University for some speaking engagement, and then somehow they were going to shoot off some fireworks because they knew that George loved fireworks, and so then we met up after the dust had all cleared and became friends, and after that, and then of course I at that point owned a fireworks company, Nationwide Fireworks, headquartered in Saginaw. And so George and I, our big claim to fame was we did the presidential inaugural back in the days of, I think that must have been Eisenhower. I'm not sure.
Wow. How did you get involved in fireworks? That must have started when you were quite young, that you just got fascinated by it?
I did get fascinated by it, and I realized in different things in my life that, okay, if I want to play around with this, at some point they're going to say, well, you can't just play around with that anymore. And then you have to start a company. So I started a company, and I started Nationwide Entertainment and Nationwide Fireworks and a few more, Nationwide Convention Management. So I liked the Nationwide name, and I liked my eagle logo.
Okay.
Yep, and so that's where that all grew. And
Did you produce your own fireworks, or did you have to, import them?
No manufacturing. That's a very hazardous business. It's hazard enough when you're out there shooting them professionally. But you've got powders and mixtures, and if you're not careful, you're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay. So, in other words, your company was you acquired the fireworks, and then you would put them on, basically.
Yeah, and we also wholesaled them, and our claim to fame was that I was fascinated by fireworks enough that I wanted to learn all about them, and so I knew we had U.S. fireworks companies, but I said, well, hey, fireworks are used all over the planet. I mean, this can't be the only place that they make fireworks. So I'd start to explore that, and then I found out that to my early guess, yes, pretty much any country in the world probably has a fireworks factory or two. And that's how I got a position that at the height of my business, my claim to fame was that I imported from more different countries on the globe than any other company. And fireworks products have always been borderline hard to get. I mean, because you've got the danger factor, you've got a weather factor, you've got different things that help influence the sales. And so at one point then I introduced Brock's fireworks from Crystal Palace in England, and then I imported them from Germany, and then I imported them from Brazil, and all of these fireworks were locally made with their own particular spin on things, So as I say, my claim to fame at Nationwide Fireworks was that when you got fireworks from us, you could get an amazing variety because of our importing products from all over the place.
Wow.
One of your companies was Nationwide Booking.
Don't know about that one.
Okay, Gus Patterson.
Oh, Gus Patterson, yeah.
He told me to ask you about. He said, "Yeah, well, Dave used to book us."
Oh, yeah. So you're talking about musicians again now. Yes,
right.
Yes, and Gus was a banker who wanted to be a musician, or vice versa. I can't remember. It was one or the other.
The Stingrays, was that his
Yeah,
group?
the Stingrays, sure. Boy, that takes me way back. Yeah, so you're right. I had Nationwide Entertainment, and Entertainment Associates was another corporation. And so I was booking bands besides my own. Now, at the beginning point, there was no New Reformation band. There was no Dixieland band. But we could put together 3, 4, 5 musicians to do a dance at the country club. And then we'd book other bands that would have done the same thing, of course. So, yes, you have your hand up, sir.
Yeah, David, tell us about your shenanigans in college when you booked the Kingston Trio before they became famous.
Oh, yeah. Well.
And your friend Dave.
Which one?
I don't know. Is there four Daves in that band also?
Dave Guard. Is it Dave Guard? You're talking about Kingston Trio?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right.
I think it's Dave Guard.
Right. He was one of the original guys.
Sure.
I think he was the banjo player, wasn't he?
Yep. And, that's been for always one of our handicaps here is that in the New Reformation band, if you want to start a problem there, just go by the band and shout, "Hey, Dave!" Because Dave Tatro, Dave me, Dave, we right, currently
Dave
have four.
Cadwell, Dave
Right, we
Bennett,
have-
Dave.
Right, we have four
Dave-
Daves in the band.
Dave Barkalow.
Yes. Yeah. You snuck that one in, Bob. Yeah, okay.
So what's this about the Kingston Trio? That you booked the Kingston Trio before Tom Dooley?
Well, I'll try and get this story in there quickly, but when I've always been a show business person, that's what mostly excites me. So when I went to Denison University in Granville, Ohio, I found out that my father had gone to that same fine university down in Granville, Ohio. And so when I got to be high school seniors, my mom and dad, of course, had great hopes for me that I wouldn't just grow up and be either a fireworks guy or a musician. They were hoping for something, I think, a little higher up the ladder. But anyway, I'm trying to think how I got into that area. Where was I going with that one?
Well, you were in charge of like the entertainment group there at the college.
Yes.
And you had this brilliant idea. Why don't we book the...
Yeah, no, I've got it now. I was a Phi Gamma Delta when my father was a Phi Gamma Delta, when he was there. And so they have big brothers who sort of look after the incoming freshmen and that sort of thing. And my big brother happened to be on the student council, so he had some clout. And it turned out in Granville, Ohio, they didn't have much to do, and there was no movie theater in town. Well, back to Saginaw, in my early days, I found out I could rent movies and charge a nickel to come in and that sort of stuff. And so that's how I got connected to Films Incorporated and a couple of the other major 16 millimeter film rental people. And so my big brother said, well, wait a minute, you know something about renting movies? I said, yeah, I know a bit about that. So he said, okay, we're going to make you the Denison campus government motion picture coordinator.
Wow.
Then they tried to fit that on the card, and it didn't fit. But I became that person, and on the campus there, they had a science building that had a beautiful auditorium, small, only about 200 people, and it had a projection booth with a projector behind it, which is very good. It's not in the room making noise, it's behind in the booth. So they said, well, we'd like to have you, Dave, get over there and put on campus movies. Let's start with every Friday night. And I said, okay. So this is what proceeded to divert me from things like homework and assignments like that, So I was skating along, trying to hold on, and the only thing I had to do was outdo my dad, because he only lasted one semester when he went there. So I figured, okay, if I can beat Dad, I'll be okay. So I did, and so then they decided, well, when campus goes into their final exams, there's a lot of pressure on the students. So Dave, I think you better put on a movie every night during exam week, which meant that I put on a lot of really good movies, and I flunked in a lot of very important exams. Right. So that's the way that worked out. But the other thing was I was charging 25 cents for a black and white, but if it was a color movie, 35 cents.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
well, that's not a lot, but when you do that every Friday night and every night during exams, sooner or later that money starts to pile up in there. And so now let's move forward to senior year. And by now, we got quite a bit of money there. And the people in the administration aren't looking very carefully over their shoulder at little Dave and his movies, And so I said, well, okay, all this money that's been assembled in my private bank account here, we could put on a darn good entertainment weekend, show business again, right?
Imagine that.
Yep. And so I decided that I had to sort of do this quietly behind a lot of closed doors, because I don't think the administration thought it was a good idea that I put on a big extravaganza, because those were the days where there were motorcycle gangs and things like this, and they could see the campus being besieged by people from all over the Midwest coming in, tearing down the fences, doing all this sort of stuff. So I had to be very careful that I checked all the T's and dotted all the I's to make sure I didn't give them any excuse to say, oh, you can't do that. And so I put together this thing. So I started. The Kingston Trio was just beginning to hit the big time, you know. And then I thought, well, that sounds okay. That's a good act. Then I know I'm being a jazz fan. George Shearing. I thought the George Shearing Quintet, and I brought that. Then I got the Salty Dogs from Purdue, because they were a Dixieland band, which I realized that Dixieland had become a part of me. And so we put this whole thing together, and it was very successful. And there was, and then of course, so that everything fits together here. So we had all these musicians and bands, and including the Kingston Trio, which, as I say, was the hottest in the country. And we had publicity. There was a story in the front page of the Wall Street Journal, because then the administration had kind of figured out that this isn't what they thought it was going to be. And so now the newspapers are taking good old Dave's responsibility, and let's cheer for Dave. He's putting this show together. Let's all get together and support it. So the word spread throughout the Midwest to almost all colleges and universities, so that when we finally had our entertainment weekend with the Kingston Trio, which was the hottest group in the country right then at that time, and with George Shearing for the jazz fan, it grew. Then we found out that in all those years, the city of Granville, maybe the town of Granville, we should say, had never had a fireworks display. Well, okay, here we go. So by golly, we and then a company called United Fireworks was based in Dayton, Ohio, and that was just like 50 miles down the highway from my college. So my roommate happened to be a volunteer fireman. So he's nutty cuckoo over fireworks too. So now we got two of us. So we went over to United Fireworks one day. We didn't tell, of course, administration what we're doing. And so we went over there, and my bank account was still wonderfully fluid. It was, all this stuff going on, buying all these bands and all this stuff. Now we're going to have fireworks. First fireworks display in the history of Granville, Ohio. So we did that, and that, of course, the contact I made when I went over to United Fireworks, because I put on a coat and a tie, and I impressed them. And they said, "Oh, Dave, you're going to graduate in 2 weeks from now. What are you going to do when you go back home?" "Well, I don't know. What, do you got any idea?" "Well, we're looking for a distributor up there in Michigan for our fireworks." "Well, okay, sounds good to me." I wasn't going to go into medicine or anything like that. I wasn't, or be an attorney or any of these real decent occupations. And I think my poor mother and dad paying all this money for me to go to university and coming out as a fireworks guy. That's I think probably one of their major disappointments. But it turned out, and that's why way down the line I met George Plimpton. And yeah.
What year was the college getting the graduation?
Graduated in 1959, sir.
Out of college, okay.
Yeah.
And that's when you brought the fireworks up here. Right. New Reformation hadn't been together yet at that point?
Correct. That is correct.
Were you playing anywhere music during college yourself?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did have a band down there, too.
What was it called?
I don't think we had a name.
Just went and showed up and played?
Yeah, I think, and that was a university that was very involved in the sorority fraternity. So most of the parties that would hire bands were in the fraternity and sorority houses. And so it was a ready-made market. It was very easy. They all needed to have a band, of course, if they were going to have a party. So it was easy to make the sale.
Was there any musicians down there that you connected with and ended up playing with down the line?
Well, because I was a Dixieland fan, people like Bob Scobie and some of the famous Dixieland musicians, I connected with them, and they would often come into, there was a couple of jazz clubs in Columbus, and Columbus was just 20 miles down the road from Granville, but they had real bars and concerts and that sort of stuff, so that helped grow that part of my interest in music and booking bands.
So that was the Dixieland band that you had in college?
Yes, right. It was. Good point.
Yeah, and but that didn't start in high school in Saginaw?
No.
Okay, just found people that had the same kind of love that you did and put something together?
Yeah. Our family was fortunate enough that because of my grandfather years before put one of the first cottages up on Higgins Lake. And so my dad and mother eventually got to take over a cottage at Higgins Lake. And so that's one of the North Shore of Higgins, and they have a community dining hall throughout the summer season. And that's where the guy that had a cottage next door to mine turned out to be a drummer. He wasn't good, but he was loud. And so that was sort of my introduction into the music business, now that I think about it, other than my time in the sorority houses at Denison. But so that's another musical part of the career.
Now, when you came back to Saginaw then,
right,
is that when you started, am I right, that you kind of did sing-along piano work?
Oh, yes, me and Bob Gunther, the Silver Fox. That's another, yeah. Instead of Dixieland, that was sing-along.
But that started after you came back to Saginaw,
right?
Then,
Yes.
To keep your hand in music.
Yes.
Was that at the Shook?
Yes.
The Shook?
Yes.
Is that where they had the peanuts on the floor?
Yes.
And the peanut shells on the floor?
That's right.
Okay,
for sure. Yeah.
Because I sat in with your band when you played at the Shook a long time ago.
Oh, yeah, really?
Because I was playing washboard.
Yeah. Well,
Craig Hodnett was in the band at the time.
That's
He
great.
was a friend of mine. That's how I probably got.
And by the way, I can tell you that according to one of my good friends, she just talked to Craig last week, and he's coming to Saginaw next month.
Oh.
So we're going to have to get
definitely
a little reunion together.
You know, I have most of your albums and CDs, and the original band was the Celebration Roadshow.
No, that was a spin-off band of the right. New Reformation band came first.
Okay.
And then what happened was that my brother Nick was never one to really get excited about being employed. But he and Reverend Gary Miller at the First Congregational Church became good buddies. And so Reverend Miller really loved the idea of having his band and traveling around the country preaching the gospel. Oh. And so that's where that started. And it was interesting because when Gary put together his band by putting a few here, and then I had to go back and plug in the holes of the guys he took. And so, I mean, the downside of that is basically I gave up my brother, you know. So he went off with the Reverend because my brother was never, you know, didn't employment. Well, if you need to, okay, but he loved making music. He loved playing the banjo and the guitar. He loved traveling around the country with the Reverend. And so that's how that happened. So the Celebration Roadshow was the spin-off group, one of them, and there's been a couple more.
Was Lori Seaman in that group?
Boy, I don't think I knew Lori.
Lori Beebe now.
Oh, that's right. Sure. Yeah.
Because she married
that's
one
right.
of the guys.
One of the guys in the band. Yes.
Right.
Okay. Now I'm with you. That's right. Very true.
Because she's on one of the albums, I think.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
And another
Sounds good.
point, while we're not, was Dave had hired the Kingston Trio prior to their fame. So he got them for, do you remember the price you hired them for?
I think 1,500 maybe.
And then by the time they were famous, they were charging 10 grand. But they honored the whole point of that was that
Right.
they honored the contract that David signed. And I thought that was really quite remarkable.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bands that still play that way.
Right on.
Yeah, that's cool. So you got him before Tom Dooley hit.
Yes, just about the time. I mean, when I booked them, there was no Tom Dooley. But by
Right.
the time the gig came up, months later,
Yeah.
now Tom Dooley was number one on the.
Yeah.
Well, there's that famous story about Simon and Garfunkel with Bob Dyer in Saginaw, and he booked them before Sounds of Silence became a big hit, and then they honored the contract too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool.
I remember working with Bob on WKNX. Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Thanks for the memories.
Sure.
One of your early bands was the musician Charlie Hooks.
Yes, right?
He was my English instructor at Delta when I
Oh,
went
really?
there.
I
And then I just thought he was a cool guy. He was like a playboy type of guy or something. And then I find out he played in your band, and I thought, wow, I didn't even know he was a musician.
Yeah, more in the Celebration Roadshow than the New Reformation. But yeah, and then didn't he end up in Chicago or something?
I think so.
eventually? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Right.
So from that era with the two bands, the spinoff and all that, when was the first New Reformation record? What year was that?
Well, it's interesting because, of course, those of us in the room here that know about music and how you make music, but then again, how do you make a nickel? I mean, just try to live off the thing, and so the I don't know where I was exactly going with that one, but our problem today, right now, in this very moment, is my New Reformation band has produced not one, not five, not 10, but 16 albums. Now, when we started, that first album was a
Million
33
sellers or something it was called?
Yeah, we called it the Million Seller album. Little bravado there, but so that was a 33 and a third disc.
Yeah.
Right. Then along came cassette tapes. Then along came CDs. And so now, right now, I'm at the point where when the band is, of course, active now that the world is getting rid of the bad stuff and musicians are coming out from their holes and, going back and making music again. But, yeah, that's the problem. What I will do if it's a very close, if we're in an auditorium with 3,000 people, I can't do it. But if it's a smaller venue, and I will say, okay, look, I've got some of our latest CDs here, and I'd be happy to give them. Okay, but you have to tell me and prove to me, what are you going to do with it? How? When you take that CD out of this auditorium, what happens next? Well, I don't know. I don't have. Do you have a CD player? No, I don't have a CD player. So that the summary right there, right now, of where the live music business is when you, of course, promote something of a musical product, then your ultimate goal, of course, will be to become rich and famous, and then that's going to be based on the fact that somebody likes you, and then all of a sudden everybody's buying it, but now, as I say, when I am out with doing a concert, we usually have sales of our CDs going on during the concert. And like we did when we played here in Saginaw at the Anderson Center, or Jazz on Jefferson, or whatever, that's part of, obviously, what we look forward to, is the fact that we've got a live audience, and hopefully there might be 2 or 3 people, or maybe 5, that have a CD player.
Yeah, the sad thing is you can't even play the CD on the way home.
No, that's right.
None of the cars have a CD player anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's why I had to buy a car that had a CD player. It's the only way I can hear my music.
David, are you on iTunes in any form, or out on the internet?
I've been told that yes, that the New Reformation Band is on most of the online music sources. I'm not smart enough to turn on a radio, much less one of those things. So I don't know, but
yeah, I'm sure most people probably play music on their phone now.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen people that
and then you can hook your phone up to your car, and have music in your car. I confess, as much of a vinyl junkie I was, and all kinds of CDs, that's really the way I play music now, is through my phone.
Sure.
And I'll download CDs onto the phone, and geez.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just the world has turned upside down.
Yep.
So what year did that million seller come out?
By goodness, I have a chart that has all of these listed, but Million Seller, that's right, Million Seller was the first one, so that would have happened in the early 70s, I would think.
How did you record that? Local, or did you go to Detroit, or where'd you go?
Yeah, no, I think my dad helped record it, because my dad had a store called Radio Center, the Center for Everything in Radio and Television, over by the YMCA.
You wouldn't know it. There was a building there now. I remember that.
Yep. And
Jerry Simpson worked there, didn't he?
Yes, absolutely. Jerry Simpson was sort of the guru of the music business.
That's how I got started.
The combination of the fact that they did what at the time seemed like a very remarkable thing. If you went to the Radio Center, they had their own record department over on this side of the building, and that's where Jerry Simpson was holding forth. And he'd help you find them, whether you were looking for jazz or classical.
Walking encyclopedia.
Then you could take that record, which now is a 78 record, right? We've gotten that far now. We're at a 78 record. And so they had these little booths, and you could take your record into the booth and play it, and then decide, oh yeah, I like that, and then that's how you helped sell the records in those days.
I remember doing that at Johnny Howard's record shop.
Right, downtown, or
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you guys recorded there too? That was my question. Like, how did you record that record?
I think my dad, with one of his big Ampexes, did it in the living room.
Really?
Yes.
How many piece band were you at that point?
7.
Fantastic. You guys crushed it into a Saginaw living room, huh?
Right.
Wow. Interesting. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, you all played it into basically one mic? Is that the way it was?
You saw some of the mics that got...
His father was a legendary Altec Lansing distributor as well. And just a side note, from the Temple Theater, I acquired 4 A7 Electro Voice Altec Lansing cabinets, and I'm restoring them. But his father probably used, one microphone, maybe 2, might have been stereo.
Right. Yep. I'm sure it was
some of
stereo.
those older reel-to-reel portable type devices that were, weighed 100 pounds and probably ran at 15 inches per second.
Right.
All you radio junkies.
All sounds right, Bob.
Well, I was there, and I've seen your dad. Your dad did the installation at the Dow Event Center, which used to be by the name of
Wendler Arena.
our dear
right?
friend Paul Wendler.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah. Who I got to know through Dave in the Rotary Club, which Dave's a member of the Rotary in Saginaw. Not to divert,
Right.
but one of the longest members of the Rotary. But I got to go to the meetings and meet all the patriarchs of Saginaw, which the Rotary of Saginaw is a fabulous group. And they also, Dave is the producer for Saginaw on Stage.
Yep.
Right.
So that 7-piece band, was it recording your own material or was it cover songs?
No, it was our own material.
How did you write? What was your writing process like?
No writing process. I don't think. I think we just, we just put. I mean, there's obviously a formula, and so you know that the trumpet is going to play in this register, the clarinet's going to play in this register, the trombone is going to play here, tuba is going to play down here. I mean, they're just certain natural things that put the harmonics together, and it doesn't take genius to figure out whichever instrument you have. You learn what is your contribution to the music.
Well, I just wondered how you came up with your own material for that. You said they're original songs, right?
So, yeah, there were no written arrangements.
Just you guys created them and said, this sounds good, let's go record it?
Yes, exactly.
Did you guys take it on as like a group writing, or did you get the writing credit for that? Or how'd that work?
No, it was just mostly just you pick a tune, you pick a key, and then you start off and you play it a few times, and then that you pretty well pick
I was wondering how, like, did you had a publishing company, I assume, at that point?
No, we never did that part. Never did that part.
Okay, I see. So you guys, who distributed that first record then?
We did whenever we'd have a gig. Yeah.
Did you guys put out 45s too as like singles?
We did put out 145.
Tri-City.
Yeah. Yes.
There you go. That's cool.
I have it.
Yeah. Oh, do you? Yep. I still have a few in the closet somewhere.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it's very rare right now. I mean, that's a very collectible record.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, look on eBay or Discogs. It's very collectible.
Oh, really?
That whole label.
I could get my money back?
Here's our big chance, Dave.
Fred's the man on the scene for how much things are worth from back in the day, that's for sure. What year would that have been? 70?
Well, let's see. I graduated from college, so then I was back here. So, yeah, it would have been in the. Let's see. So I graduated from Saginaw High School in '59. So then 60. So that's going to be in the early 60s then.
Oh, so you were in college in the 60s then?
Well, if I graduated from Saginaw High in '59, that means that's when I started my college career, which would have been 60, 61, 62.
Oh, see, I asked you that earlier, and you said you graduated from college in '59. Oh, that's why I was asking.
Somewhere in my mathematics has gone to hell. Yeah, right. I can't figure that very good.
So mid '60s maybe for that first new Reformation.
Well, I don't know when they recorded it, but the company Tri-City Records was only in business in 1970, I think.
Oh, that one.
69 or 70.
Yeah. Sure. So that makes sense.
Interesting. That's some early recording.
Ultra City, I think their subsidiary was. It was a black label.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
You did another album during that time, which I have. It's a white album, and it's recorded differently, or like
Beginnings.
That's it.
Yes.
Live at Beginnings.
Live at Beginnings, right? And of course that was the restaurant.
Right.
And that was where it was recorded, was at the restaurant. And it was a newfangled creation system that they did with, instead of microphone, it was like one microphone. And the people flew over from England. That's where they developed this.
Right.
And they came over here and went to Beginnings during a day when the place was filled with people. So it was, the album was not a studio album. It was a live audience type album. And that's still in the catalog. But of course, It was only now as a 12-inch LP.
Yeah, I sold that at my store. Somebody brought them in
Oh, good.
on consignment.
Yeah, good.
So how did that one mic system work, Dave? How
Boy, that's technology.
did they
I didn't
just?
understand.
Yeah, they just set it
Yeah.
in front of the band, and
Right. Yep.
wow.
And you said they flew in for this?
Yes.
Yeah, the company was out of England.
Yes.
Wow.
Because they did another Saginaw group, Tim Griefy's band.
Oh, yeah.
After we broke up, they started another band, Loose Caboose.
Oh, yeah. Loose Caboose.
Because
Right.
I just came across that album, and it looked just like your album, and I thought,
Right.
wait a minute. But it
Sure.
said Loose Caboose on it.
Right. Yep, and they had the Beginnings sign on the front of the Beginnings album
Right.
that was in front of the restaurant. So,
Was that on Bay Road?
yeah.
Currently, G's Pizzeria.
Oh.
So where do we head after that? Like, did you go on a national tour pretty quick after that, or when did you start your touring?
Well, I don't think it was that quick, but we did put together some wonderful tours. We did a number of cruises. We'd always try to get 1 or 2 cruises in a year, and I remember one that my friend Ricardo Verdoni, who has Verdoni Productions,
Yeah.
and he is a very good video man, and so we put together a tour that had not just 1 but 2 buses, 2 Greyhound buses filled, and we toured the Midwest. I know we went to Indianapolis, we went to a number of places, and that was, again, a very successful thing for us to do. And Ricardo went along and made it into a video, which occasionally will be shown on a television station somewhere.
Wow. Fantastic. What, and that took you into the 80s and 90s, just hitting the road and putting out records and doing that particular thing for entertainment?
Yeah, I do believe so.
So we're, this most recent record, what's the most recent record you've put out? Is that the one that you handed Mike earlier? Or no?
You don't know either, huh, Bob?
The most recent, I can't even guess. But we've got a bunch in the queue that we've recorded.
Well, the Unleashed record, I'm sure, has got to be one of our latest, right? Yeah.
I wasn't there that day.
Okay.
When did that come out? Or is it not out yet?
It's got a chart that I carry around with us. If I'd have known I was going to get all those questions, I would have brought that right here, because we literally list. We have produced 16 albums.
Well,
and there, some of them are no longer available. Some still are, but we're not selling the cassette tapes at all.
no, huh? That last,
I understand cassette tapes are making a comeback.
they are.
Are they really?
Yes.
We had a guest in here 2 weeks ago that
This is what we understand.
brought in a cassette box set of their entire history that just came out on a label. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Very nice.
Yeah,
I think
released on
Jack
cassette.
White is releasing something on cassette.
Oh yeah.
Jump on that, would you, Bob? And find out what's going on.
I bought cassettes till I was done when albums quit, and I've got all
CDs.
those. It's just amazing the stuff that's out on cassette, and it's pretty good quality, for the most part.
Well, the warm tape. I mean, that's the closest you can get to reel, which was, for a lot of people that was a sound within itself. There, and then the Walkman, which we were talking about too. But you went through 5 decades. You're going on now of 6 decades of music.
Bob's counting fingers over there. All right. Yeah.
50 years would be 5 decades, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
1970, again, I don't know if we've touched on this, but Reverend Gary Miller said, let's do a praise and worship service. And that's how the band, New Ref Band, came together. And they did one show, and they said, well, this is pretty good. And then they get booked, and, and now we're talking about that history.
Yeah.
So, it all started, Dave says, I know how to start a band, but I don't know how to end one. So we're still doing it. We just signed this contract with the Dow Event Center, and we've got. Didn't you sign for Jazz on Jefferson and Anderson in Richmond for next year? So we're in.
So 2023, and you're still plugging away at it.
Yeah.
You bet.
Excellent. What's on the horizon then after that? More recordings or just relaxing with the shows from here on out?
Well, we're just going to keep doing it till we get it right.
All right. I love that. I love that. That's great. Well, thank you, Dave, for all these years. I mean, is there a high point that you might be able to bring up that we haven't been able to talk about yet? Or
for the most part, just a pleasure to work with such a world-class band. And I did want to note, I work with bands, and you do too. And I've never had to ask them to tune up. They're in tune, and I'm like, I've never had to ask them to tune up. They're always in tune. And some of the bandmates, Dave Bennett, who's got a #1 song on the jazz charts, that's pretty cool. And Dave, we build our schedule, meaning Dave's band, around Mr. Bennett. So if he's available for the Anderson and Richmond show, then we book that date.
oh,
So Dave Bennett, world-class.
who's in the band right now then?
A world-class clarinet. So who's in the band? Well, we've had Keith DeWitt. We've got, again, the most famous guy, Dave Tatro, on trumpet, who I met at Vince's Apple Mountain back in the day. I was playing the basement, and Mr. Tatro was upstairs with the lovely Gail English, who I've got a recording of Gail and I, which will be coming out in 2043.
43.
But who's in the band? Let's see. Keith DeWitt, again, and retired. Dave Cadwell on banjo. Dave's about 76, just a brilliant banjo player. And a Les Paul guitar that we'd all like to own.
Paul Keane on the tuba. Very
tuba can play, jazz and play Led Zeppelin and Beatles on the tuba. It's quite amazing. Drummers, we have John Hill III from Schwartz Creek. He's brilliant.
All right.
And meeting John Hill's been a pleasure, but his friend is Jerry, the drummer from Stan Getz band, Jerry McKenzie. So I've met Jerry McKenzie down in Detroit. And then the last time we were in Detroit at the Detroit Symphony Jazz Ensemble group, I met one of the guitar players for Motown.
Cool.
Oh, man. So Dave's allowed me to kind of hang out with the band.
How old are you now, Dave?
How old what?
How are you now?
Oh, age-wise?
Yeah.
You got any clues on that, bud?
Somewhere in 55 or so. I don't know. You graduated in 59, add about 20, that might be 60.
Somebody said the other day 84. I didn't know if they actually counted or not.
Well, I was at your 80th birthday party 6 years ago.
86. Wow. And still booking shows. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
One of your early drummers was Milt Schultz.
Schultz, yep.
Because I wrote about him in my first book. He used to play with Paul Daines, I think.
Yeah. Uncle Mildy, yep.
Was he, someone said he was kind of pretty wild guy.
Well, I think he got a little bit of too much of the ginger ale, I think, yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, but he was a fun guy and a good drummer.
Wow. Anything else, Gary? You want to?
No, that was awesome.
A remarkable history. Remarkable. And thank you, Bob, for bringing along the backstory. We do appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Opperman, thank you for the show. It's been an honor to have you here to talk, give your backstory, give you all this history on all the businesses.
Well,
and we're looking forward to the next shows.
By gosh, this is a lot of fun, and I've been very relaxed ever since the wheels started turning around here.
Oh, excellent. Well, we thank you for coming. Great show.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Without a doubt.
The MMHP is hosted on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our own Libsyn podcast site. You can also search MMHP989 on Facebook for up-to-the-minute information, as well as both Dr. J and Sir Fred's album picks of the week, posted every weekend. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at MichiganRock'n'RollLegends.com, Sir Fred at FredRife.com, Brought to you by Michigan rock and roll legends located both inside the Bay County Historical Museum on Washington Avenue, as well as Scotty's Sandbar on Evergreen Drive at the Bay City Middle Grounds.
On behalf of the hosts, Gary, Dr. J. Johnson, Sir Fred Reif, archivist and videographer Mike Beatty, and myself, this podcast wouldn't be here without Studio 163's Alan Garcia, the voice of MMHP, Mr. Eddie Switek, all of our guests, and you, the listeners.
You've been listening to the MMHP and the 989. From all of us at the podcast, we want to thank you for tuning in.
Every time he plays, I drag out my Tascam DR22, y'all, and I record the band, and some of them have been extremely lucky.
Really?
So I've got them on the chip, and we've talked about editing. We have the most funny version of the St. Louis Blues. Well, there she is lying on the table, all beautiful. One of my favorite songs that Tatro does. And we did this long ending, and it was misty rain at the, it's just kind of wet and damp, and just everybody's in a good mood. And he dragged out the ending for like 2 minutes and 50 seconds. You know, like, you know, it's just one of the funniest. And these guys are unpretentious. It's fly by the seat of your pants, sort of like when I studied my Led Zeppelin. Like, you know, they just played. They play off each other. Dave will point and say, yep, okay, it's a trombone solo, or it's a tuba solo, or a banjo solo, you know, and they direct within the band, and Mr. Tatro does a lot of the directing as well. And what I find is, you know, they'll play in all different kinds of keys, you know, all of the typical horn keys, you know, B flat, E flat. So as a guitar player, we don't typically think in those keys,
Right.
so it really sharpens your ear to the different flavors of keys. Like when I studied in Philadelphia, my director said each key has its flavor and tone and punch. But just too much fun music. And I would see them out playing, and I go, wow, I would sure like to be a part of that band.
What year did you first see them?
I know they used to come to Horizons Conference Center, so that's in like 1998, 2003, that kind of era. But maybe once or twice, and I was aware of the concert at beginnings, and then I'd see the name around, and I knew Dave because we were in radio separately together. But, you know, and I always admired the band, and of course I'd seen the Temple Theater thing on television, PBS, close to the time that it came out. And it was Raw Temple, 96, before it had been totally redone by Dr. Sam Shaheen.
Right.
So we've got a very raw theater, and the backdrop, the scrims and all that's all gone. It's just the brick. And the
Yeah, we
radiators.
played there, I think. I played with the Purple Warblers that year.
Yeah.
With
yeah.
East
So
Side.
it was rough, and, you
Yeah.
know, but the band got there, and then the PBS production, it was top notch. How many cameras? 15 cameras?
Yeah.
And they had them on the flying thing, and, you know, it was top notch production.
So you've been kind of stuck with them since then, eh?
Yeah, we've been together at least 10 years.
Oh, wow.
10. So,
I had no clue that you were doing this, 'cause you always do your own thing so much.
yeah, well, I've
Wow.
given myself the title of executive producer.
I see that.
He lets me
I was like, I thought you
say
were
that.
messing with me. I'm like, what's he talking about? You can't tell me this
And,
one.
and very humbly, you know, we work together on other projects. You know, he lets me consult with the Saginaw on stage stuff, just so that the bands are good, the sound is good, that the electrical's good, we don't burn down any hotels, nobody dies on our watch, you know.
I played it this year. It was
Yeah,
a good one.
so, you know, he's allowed me to be in on that. You know, I go to the Rotary meetings, and I really, again, I'll say, I just adore those people. If I was going to join anything other than the YWCA, it would be Rotary. And the patriarchs of Saginaw, and in the last 10 years, we've seen people like Paul Wendler, you know, move on, and some of our other pals. So we're really lucky to have Dave as the patriarch of Saginaw.
For sure. When Lori Middlebrook came on our show, I don't know if you heard that episode. She said she was going to perform at where you stay at and she's like, well, Dave would probably be willing to come out. You got to get him though when he's ready to do it. And we thought about it, you know, and yeah, that whole thing.
Followed me in hot from M13, man.
Did he?
We had We had a nice ride. He said, "How do you make all the lights?" I said, "Me and the sheriff, we're buddies."
That's cool. That's cool. So we wanted to track you down, and then we put her show out, and I reminded her about it. She shot me his phone number, and we put it together. And I thank you for making this.
Yeah.
He's like, "Are you legit? Tell me something that's going to make you real." Well, I'll tell you this. I like that. He don't take no crap.
Yeah, he's a shrewd guy.
Yeah.
And, I've learned his management style, and, and as we get broader into our music careers, we realize that we're the managers now and that we have to protect everybody's interests too.
Yeah. It's fantastic how long you've been doing it and how you continue to do so. I just adore that. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do as a writer and as a musician. I've always honored our state, and our musicians there's a diehardness to, like, from the rock to the country to the Dixieland jazz to the polka guys. I mean, we got, and this show has brought all that together, and it's like, holy cow, how cool to be able to get all this backstory. Yeah, it's fantastic.
When I lived in Ann Arbor, there was a very popular Dixieland band, Jim DePogny.
Sure.
And a lot of those guys, I think, played in your band, don't they?
Yeah, but most of them, it's
like Rod McDonald.
Yes, Rod McDonald.
He used to come in and buy records from me, come all the way